Sweet. So here are 20 must-have automations that you need for your business. In the past 2 months, I've done over 15 different projects where one, some, and also sometimes most of these automations, which I'm about to show you, are things that I've used to great effect in order to increase the capacity of the people that I've been working with. Because a lot of people will come to me, and at least over the past couple of months, and they've said, yeah, some of the stuff that I know that you're able to do, I've not been able to crack. Let's have a go and see if you can make it work. And they tend to have been, landing page agencies, email marketing agencies, UGC, short form, long form, people that deal with content, and just people who just deliver, productized design, that kind of stuff. They've kind of needed a lot of these automations. So what I'm going to do is show you what these automations are so that you can have some ideas as to what you would need to develop or implement inside of your business so that you can increase your capacity. So number one, and the way I'm going to take this is I'm going to go from the start, which would be lead generation in this sense, go all the way through sales, and then I'm going to end with project management and what would be the delivery of whatever it is that you develop. And right at this end, we have cold emails. Now, cold email reply flow, this is something that I have built a number of times for a number of different people, and I've also got a 2-hour video of me building this from scratch, including the Slack bots that are attached to these last messages here. So there'll be a link for that somewhere. But the whole idea behind this is that we use Smart Lead, and the Smart Leads webhook is taking every single reply that we would have for a particular client, getting the getting the Smart Lead API key, finding the information, going through a document, which is a rotating list of prompts, passing that document, finding the correct prompts, and pushing them through a GPT. That GPT is then categorizing people, or categorizing the reply that came from here into these different categories. And then once these categories have gone through, for example, this one, not interested, this one is do not contact, it adds people to the block list. This one here is a out of office, and this chat GPT finds out from the information inside of the reply when they come back in office, and then it will delay the leads in that campaign to that day when they are back. So if it says, hey, it's November 24th, I'm out of office, I'll be back on the 11th of December. On the 11th of December, this email will go out. So that's kind of some of the stuff that gets built. Also, this one here is for the meeting requests. If somebody says, hey, yeah, let's talk, when are you free? We go into our Calendly and we check when we are free, and then we spit that information out into the Slack channel. And then there's a fallback for Slack messages that would say, hey, these guys are, asking for different things. This is their reply. Are they qualified? Yes or no? And then this here will be a Slack bot message that says qualified or unqualified. If they're qualified, it will do stuff. If they're unqualified, it will remove them from campaigns and things like that. So that's the first one. Then we have positive reply flows. Positive reply flows works off of the same type of webhook, except it's for when a lead category changes. And what we do here is we push the information from here into close. We search for the lead. If the lead is present, then we update them and we push them to an Airtable, which is forming basically like a dashboard to determine on what days do we get these positive replies, so on and so forth. And then if they are present inside a close, then we'll push them here. Some things that you can add, which I'll probably show in when I get into the ClickFunnels automations, is adding them to your newsletter, adding them to your Beehive, your ConvertKit, whatever it may be, adding them to your retargeting ads, through your retargeting your audience, for your Facebook audience, for retargeting ads and things like that. You can add a bunch of other things here. And opt-in flow, like I was saying, so this is for people who are running ads from ClickFunnels. Whenever there's an opt-in and you get a phone number, name, and email, this automation will add that person to close. It will add them to your sequences inside of ConvertKit. If you have, like a 15, 20, 30 email sequence inside of ConvertKit that you use to get people to book calls, to show your content, to show your expertise, all of that information and is powered by these powered by these automations. And these are great to have just because there's going to be a lot of retention and nurturing that would be needed. And when you have the information here, including a ClickFunnels ID, whenever they book a call, that information will be shown inside of Close. And there is possibility there to update Hyros automatically when someone books a call and their ClickFunnels ID is prevalent or is present, because Hyros will have that information too. Cool. Signal-based outreach flows. This one here is, I have a video where I've broken down exactly how to go through this. I remember when I made the video in and of itself was me building it from scratch, and there was a bit of an issue with this final step here, and it was because of something that was going on with Claude, but that one has been fixed and the blueprint has the one that works. So the whole point of this is that you have the companies that make up your ICP. So it's just a search. Let's say, for example, you're going after SMBs in the tech, in the health tech space. You would have a search which is defined by the code inside of this tab here, and within that search, let's say you're looking for people who are currently hiring for SDRs. We would take that as a module, take the companies from there, split open all of the companies, turn those companies into people based on who your ICP is, split all of those people out, find their emails, find their phone numbers, run them through Neverbounce, and then add personalization via AI and take it into Smart Lead and post it to a campaign of your choosing with the merge fields already pushed in. This is a nice way to have consistent flows of cold emails going out, even when you're in the middle of creating campaigns that haven't been generating leads and haven't been generating calls, and you just, trying to go through and make sure that you always have something sending. Pulling campaign stats. So this one here is one thing that we've used whenever we've done cold outreach for a bunch of people. We still use it now to this day. The whole point of it is, on a regular basis, what we will do is we'll find all of the campaigns that are currently active inside of Smart Lead, and then we'll split them open and then add the daily stats to all of them and then record them inside of the Airtable. And then from there, we'll have a depiction inside of an interface of how many emails have been sent from this campaign, how many leads were in this campaign, how close are we getting to the point where the campaign is going to be finished, how many replies, and then we do a bunch of other computation inside of Airtable to give us things that we don't necessarily have from the information provided to us by Smart Lead. Things like contact to lead ratio and that kind of stuff. This is where we would get all of that information. So there's one for daily campaign stats, and there could be one for weekly campaign stats and things like that as well. But pulling campaign stats and doing all of this stuff for dashboard purposes is something that I'll go into later as well with some of the other automations. Then we have campaign completion. This one works off of a campaign in that weekly view, hitting 50% of the leads reached out. Once 50% of the leads are reached out, it will enter a view. Whenever new records enter that view, this webhook will be triggered, and this webhook will take that information from that campaign and push it into a Slack channel saying, hey, this campaign is 50% done. It needs an audit. Go through and write down all the information that is needed in order for you to determine if this was a success or not. Very, very simple, very straightforward, works across the entire workspace and the entire Smart Lead account. Then we have the booked call flows. So now we're coming out of lead generation and now we're going into booked calls. These booked call flows, the way that they're designed is kind of annoying, and I think it's actually easier to manage than something like Zapier, straight up. But the way that the Canally events work is that there's an event for an invitee created or an event for an invitee cancelled. So whenever someone reschedules, it's actually a cancellation and then an invite. So to correctly represent that, you need 3 branches, but the way that it works is that all of the reschedules are going to go through the same first branch, because this just sends off 2 events instead of 1. And the first event will say cancelled, rescheduled. This one here is, this branch here at least is cancelled, no reschedule. And this one here is new invitee created. So there's no differentiation between a new invitee and a rescheduled invitee. So that's the reason why it looks as complicated as it does. We're also doing things like pulling information from Smart Lead, determining where they came from, if they were inbound or outbound, so that we're not reliant on the Calendly questions to determine the source of the lead. So things like that are what's being powered by this booked call flow. And then we have contract generators. So inside of Close, custom activities can be used to power automations. And those custom activities, the first thing that you would need to do in order to get them to work is you need to add a subscription event, which is long, annoying, but once you've done it once, this works ad infinitum. But whenever that custom activity, which is basically just a form on the lead page inside of Close, is filled, it will trigger this webhook. This webhook will find the information from the user or from the lead, find the information from that custom activity, and then take the codes which are representative of the questions, give you the answers attached to those codes, of which you can use something like set multiple variables to make it clearer for you and everybody else using it what everything is. And then in this case, the one that we did for a client who was running a lot of ads and getting a lot of calls and getting a lot of contracts sent for a bunch of different offers, we had one question inside of the custom activity and Close that said, hey, what are we selling this person on? And it was just a drop down, and whichever drop down answer was picked is the one that would send them to the requisite PandaDoc branch, which includes, you know, full service, and this was for an accountant, so it was like full service, projects only, tax services, etc., etc. And then it would create the document, send a message to the Slack channel saying, hey, this is the PandaDoc document, we've marked it as sent already inside of Close, just give this another check to make sure that everything's good. And then we'll search the opportunity, and when it's found, we'll update it. So that's the contract generator sales activation flow. Then we have the contract flow itself. So this is for when that PandaDoc form or that PandaDoc contract has been sent and has been signed and been paid by the client in question. You can go to the ends of the world with contract flows because it's very dependent on what you would need for your systems. This is my one, and for my one, I need a Slack channel, I need a Google Drive, I need the information from the PDF, from the contract PDF to be imported into Airtable, and I need the CRM to be updated. So that's what all of these branches are. We have the first one here being a message, the next one here creating the Slack channels, this one here creating the Google forms, the Google documents and the Google Drive folders. And at the end of that, we have a Gmail tab here, and the Gmail here is sending the onboarding form and the onboarding call link as well. And then from here, we pass the PDF for the scope of work and or the client information, how much we sold them on, what the guarantee is, what the contract duration is, all of that information. And that is then being stored. You can see all of these little set multiple variables here at the end of these branches. It's all being stored and then spat back out and dropped into Airtable. Same thing here. The things are being spat out and then dropped into the Close opportunity, and then marked people as customer and marked people as contract one. So that's the contract flow. That's not what everybody else needs. The ones that I've been doing, especially for the short form people that I've been working with, the content people that I've been working with, etc., is instead of this part here, well, I'd usually have almost all of these parts. Some of them don't run CRMs, which is a different question, is a different topic entirely. But there would usually be another branch here that would say, create frame projects, create the hierarchy of folders inside a frame. Everybody has a different hierarchy as to the way that they distribute raw footage videos from the ready to go videos. Some people house all of their ad creatives in one place. Some people house all their ad creatives in different product folders. Some people house the short forms that they've sent to the people inside a frame, and they would download it from frame only. It's very dependent on what the client themselves wants, but the foundation for that can be created here. And everything from this point onwards basically is a cascade. All of the information from what gets created on this contract flow gets entered into the database, and the management of the data starts from this point here. So if you can get all of the data that you need from everything that you would be working with into Airtable from this contract flow as it's being created, then you can do a bunch of wonderful things, which I'll go on to explain now. So this one is just the onboarding form. Let's say, for example, this one here was for a client who makes landing pages. Sometimes they would have brand assets, product videos, not just videos, product videos, product pictures, AI, UGC, whatever it may be, and they are attachments that would need to be added into Airtable. We would need to use something like an iterator here, where we would get the form, search for the client, use an iterator, and then just spread that out and put it into the brand assets field, and it would just be a list of pictures or a list of videos, which can be upserted into the Airtable, and then we send a message in Slack saying, hey, they've just filled out the onboarding form. If they haven't booked the onboarding call, prompt them here. Here's your link again. And that's kind of what we would send every single time. Then we have auto assignment flows. So these can occur in different places. Some people can have parts of this inside of their onboarding flow, so the contract flow, such that, let's say, for example, operations managers, or even sometimes even the account managers, they may be assigned from contracts entering. There's been some like info products that I've worked with where this is assigned, like CSMs, etc., are assigned the moment that somebody signs the Panda doc, and it's based on capacity. So this is the same process here. You'll watch for, in this case, a new email flow for an email marketing agency. Whenever a new flow has been created, or a new project has been created, the flow is, you grab the flow, you grab the client, and then you search all of your requisite team members for who has the least number of projects that are pending, ready to go. Not pending. Projects that are finished, projects that are ready to go, projects that are basically done, projects that are rejected. You leave all of those out, and then you focus on, you count how many of the pages or flows the designer's actively doing, the developer's actively doing, and the account manager's actively managing, and then you assign based on an ascending order. So the person who has the least information or the lowest count is the person that gets this next flow, so that you can spread the work very effectively across the entire team and across different pods as well, because this expands out into pods as well. So that's kind of how the auto assignment flows work. It's just making sure that you spread the work evenly so that everybody gets what they need to get. Then you have approval flows, and these approval flows are internal QA, external QA. There's a lot of situations where someone will change something in frame, and that would have to trigger certain things. So for this client, whenever internal QA was done, the frame.io asset was marked as approved. When it was marked as approved, the asset would be grabbed, you'd get the client, and then it would go up this branch, and it will be moved to the done folder, which the client has access to. And then you'll send you'll make a asset link, and then get approval from the client and send error messages if the client doesn't have a Slack ID or whatever it may be. And then if it needs reviews, it goes back to the editor, and then the editor gets alerted that certain things need reviews, because internally the creative director or the founder, whoever is doing it, has said that this video doesn't work. The edits don't work. We've made mistakes here, there, and everywhere. So that's the approval flow. Then we have notification flows. These are very, very simple. It's just whenever something moves inside of a Kanban, we want something to happen. That information comes from Airtable. You can see that there are a lot of like Airtable watch responses here. This is very much one of the things that is pivotal, and there's one automation which is probably the most important automation, which I will show you probably in about 3 or 4 slides from now, which determines exactly the capabilities that you need to have in place in order for these all to be created. Tangent aside, the notification flows themselves will alert the requisite team members whenever certain things have moved into certain places. So for this one here, this was for the email marketing agency. Whenever there was a new campaign that moved to a different part of the Kanban, it would alert the relevant person. And that's pretty much all that would happen in this situation. In this situation for the landing page, this one here, whenever something was created, we would wait until the people have been assigned, and then we would do a couple of actions and send a couple of messages. And same thing again with these would happen here until it's all done. Then we have end of day, end of week, and end of month form flows, and these are for when you're doing team management. This one was from when we were using high level. So we had a high level webhook being created, being triggered whenever a new form was filled. And this form, back when we were doing lead generation, was, hey, how many calls did we book for ourselves? How many positive replies did we get for ourselves? Just count this up so that we can see it in one place. And that information was sent from high level into Slack and then stored in a data store. And then this data store was pulled every month with the tally of the information and however many forms were inputted. So if we only got 3 out of the 4 for the month, we'll have to ask the Inbox Manager, for example, what the updated numbers were. That's kind of what we were running at the time, and that was helping us understand how much work we would needed to do and how much output we got for the work that we did. Then we have sending Airtable webhooks to make. So this, when I said this was the most important automation, this was really the most important automation. So there's running scripts inside of Airtable can be scary, but you can send webhooks to Airtable, from Airtable to make, with one very, very simple script, that's basically the entire script right there. And you can find this, you can actually find this on Google. If you typed in send Airtable webhook to make, one of the actual outputs, I think it's probably like the third or fourth item on the search, will send you straight to this script, and you can just copy and paste it in. And what this will do is, whatever trigger you have in your Airtable, whether it be a record matches certain conditions, a record enters a certain view, a date, a time, a new record is created, a new record is deleted, certain conditions are made, different conditions can be matched, and upon which these conditions come from calculations which you've done prior. You can just send information of that record to Airtable, and if that record has linked records to it, you can grab information from other linked records. That in and of itself has powered basically 90% of the automations that I have. So sending Airtable webhooks to make is one of the really important ones, that if you have in your locker and you have the right data structure, you can do basically anything that you would need with just Airtable. So I've just left this one in here because this is a really important one that I wanted to highlight. I used it all of the time. Then you have the quality assurance flows, and these quality assurance flows are how to send information to a client with asking for approval on something that you would need. So in this example, it was for new email designs. Whenever an email design was moved from internal QA to external QA, what would happen is it would go through Airtable, and if it was a campaign, it would get pushed down here, get the campaign, get the details, and then send a Slack bot message. If it was a flow, it would do the same thing but with the flows instead. And what these Slack messages were interactive messages that would say, hey, here's a Figma link, this is the name of the email, can you have a look at this to determine if this is good or not? And then there'll be two buttons. One said needs review, the other one would say looks good. If they press needs review, it would do something. If it pressed looks good, it would do something else. And it would work on this type of flow. So this is a Slack bot flow, and what this will do is it will take that interactive message, push the information from that message, pass it out, and then search for the Airtable cards and the information within those cards, and then send confirmation messages or messages to say, hey, certain things need fixing, and it will move things in the Kanban for you. That is how you make approval completely hands off. And there's also how you help people on your team and help clients move through things seamlessly. So yeah, this one's a really big lift for a lot of different people, whether it's UGC and performance ad creative agencies, whether it's media buyers, whether it's email marketing, whether it's landing page design. All of these people that we've been working with recently, those are the people that have been really, they've been using this to a lot, and it's been really, really helpful for them. There are a bunch of other reasons to ask for approval. So as an entity or as an idea, this is one of the best flows that you can make for your business, and all it requires is just someone getting in and then making a Slack bot for you, which can be attached to a webhook that's a bit like this. And they get added to, so from the contract automation, just as a side tangent, these are powered by, forgive me, I'm ill, so that's why I sound a little bit croaky. These are powered by Slack bots, and because of that, a Slack bot is a user inside of a workspace. Therefore, if you in your contract flows, because I remember I mentioned that everything can start, everything that you would build starts from the contract flow. You can add these bots to the channels that you make, and all of this stuff can be readily available. And this just is what makes it infinitely scalable, which is really the thing that's most important. So I'll skip the head here. So we have document creation flows. This one here is a pretty simple one where I use this personally because whenever I build something, I need SOPs to go with it, and this will build the SOPs based on the Loom video transcript that I provide. So I have a button inside of my Airtable that I press, and once I press it, it goes through this flow, goes through Claude to create a bunch of information. Claude then spits out some code, and that code is split and then added to a Google document, which has a bunch of merge fields in it, which I then go in and change. And then once those merge fields are changed, I can update my Airtable with that link, go in, have a look, and then make my edits and then send it off to my client. And it makes handover just 10 times easier to do. Then we have dashboard item automations. So this is, could be somewhat scary. This is where the code or the scripts that you use inside the Airtable can be really useful. And it's also where a lot of ingenuity is required. So when it comes to creating dashboards, you always have to start off with the metrics that you want to display. You want to begin with the end in mind, because the end in mind are those metrics. And once those metrics are identified in your head, you now know how to calculate them. Knowing how to calculate them will require certain raw materials or certain raw numbers. The creation of those raw numbers will be dependent on how you get the data in the system in the first place. This is one of those ways of doing so. So the same way that I had the daily campaign stats being imported from SmartLead on a daily basis or a weekly basis into a log inside of Airtable, this is what would occur every single month. So what would happen is, and I'll use this one as an example. We did this for a short form agency. We would have inside of their clients table the monthly quota, so however many pieces of short form content that they are contractually obligated to produce, how many they produced for the month, what the remainder was, and what the rollover was, which was usually a blank field. That rollover would take, let's say for example there was 30 videos, that's the monthly quota, and 28 are done. That means 2 are left over. If we hit the billing date again, so let's say someone was signed on the 28th of October and today's the 28th of November, when it hits the 28th, it will move that number 2, as in the 2 remaining over, it will move that over to the rollover and then use that to calculate the monthly quota again. And that monthly quota will change to 32 for that month. In doing so, we'll understand what the completion percentage is, and that will be another formula field that is set to the side. And all of that information is like hard coded and saved in its own log. And those logs can be used every single month to determine what the actual output was. And on a month-to-month basis, you can determine what is the rollover for everybody, how many videos need to be made, how many videos have been made. And those are all counts and different things that are made based on the videos inside of the the Kanban and where they're at. So this first one here is the automation, which calculates the billing date. This one here calculates whenever the editing status of a video is posted or ready to post. And what it will do is it will determine if it was created in that month, and if it was created in that month, then it will count towards the score for that month. So these are just the things that you can do when you have the raw material. And once you know how to create the raw material, you can then work forwards to the KPIs or the metrics that you needed to create in the end. So that's kind of how dashboards work. That's the entire sort of like way that those are thought of. So that kind of wraps up that. I'm going to make another video on dashboards in and of themselves. But again, once you've made those and you can create them for yourself, you can get a bird's eye view of absolutely everything. And that's something that we've literally just wrapped up for a client. So then we have the flows that sync 2 different tools. Now, the reason why I'm putting this here is because this is one of the really fiddly ones. In the same way the dashboard items are pretty fiddly. It requires flexibility for a couple of the different softwares that are being used. And if those softwares cannot speak to each other because the data behind what you have is not something that's transferable from one to the other, then you can't use one to move the other, and vice versa, which means there is a lack of synergy between the systems that you have in play. So in layman's terms, if I was to describe this, we have a short form agency automation here where whenever edited footage is created, The video is retrieved, downloaded, and added to Frame for checks. And it needs to be hosted in Frame because clients only look at Frame, and the internal team that's doing all of the quality checks want to check it in Frame because that's part of their process. The problem is, if you move a video from Google Drive to Frame, and you move stuff from Airtable to Frame, and the video was hosted in Google Drive, you need to be able to take the information from Airtable and display it in Frame in a way that will allow you to find the information from Frame and use it in Airtable. So we had IDs in Airtable that needed to be dragged over to Frame, and this upload a video, create an asset module here was a little API call that we managed to create, which would drag an ID from Airtable and put it in here. And that made it able for us to sync the two tools. So where I showed you before the internal QA to external QA automation, which was one of the quality assurance and approval flows, that was only possible because this was created beforehand. If you move something in Frame, you cannot make those same movements in Airtable unless there is something there to sync it. And usually it's an ID that you would place in like the metadata or the description or somewhere hidden so that things can be pulled whenever changes occur here. But again, that's me getting into the weeds of the build. The whole point of this is that if you want part of your team working here and another part of your team working here, and whenever this part of the team is doing stuff over here, you want it to be reflected here, you need to be able to sync the two tools together. And we made a bunch of automations in the past few weeks at least, which have done exactly that. So in short, and there is 20 here, it just got truncated because Gamma likes to be annoying. To summarize, we have from top to bottom the marketing, sales, and project management automations here. Cold email replies, positive replies, opt-in flows, signal-based outreach, pulling campaign stats, campaign completion, booked calls, contract generators, contract flows, onboarding flows, auto-assignment flows, approval flows, notification flows. I didn't even double check it because I have the other ones in there as well. Quality assurance, Slack bot, document creation, dashboard items, yada, 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 yada. And there's a bunch more that can be made, just depending on what people use, what people need. But these are 20 automations that if you were to implement now, you could 5x your capacity basically overnight. So if you implemented all of these, you will definitely improve your systems. But big caveat, this is simply impossible. This is categorically impossible if you do not have your data in correct order. You need the correct entity relationships at play so that your systems can talk to each other, and this can therefore become possible. It starts with the backend data warehouse, and that requires you to have everything laid out with the right entities and the right attributes on those entities. I have a video on that which I'll show later, and that I'm going to make again in a lot more detail, because this is the most important thing that I've learned over the past couple of months as far as the ability to make certain things work. Once you have that backend data warehouse, you can build the front end, you can build the automations, you can build the dashboard, you can build the AI on top. But if you do not have this, you cannot do it. And if you try, you will mess things up. So for more information on entity relationships and on how to structure your data, have a look at these videos. I'll make another playlist for this, so you'll be able to see that somewhere if you have a look. And once you take a look at those, try and have a go at some of that yourself. And if you can't, then reach out to me and I'm pretty sure I can provide some help. So I'll see you in the next one.